Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Thursday morning, April 4th. Getting into the new month. Spring was supposed to have sprung. And starting yesterday at 11 o'clock, we had a winter weather advisory. And I looked out and let the dogs out this morning. We have snow on the ground. Yes, that little groundhog. We're supposed to get 4 to 6 inches today. So that's going to take all my customers. I had one call yesterday, need their mower picked up. I've got a mower and snowblower to go back today. But it's going to make my customers start slowing down again because as the snow and cold comes back, now they're kind of like, well, it's going to be a while yet. So I thought today we would talk about a little bit more on yesterday's video because I'm starting to see a pattern. And that's the older machines and some of the stuff that we put way more time in than we should, right? And sometimes we eat it. And then the other is turning trash into treasure the right way. I'll tell you a couple different ways you can do it. So stay tuned. Alright, so welcome back. My name is Eric, if you didn't already know it. And we do the weekday show, which this is one of the days, Thursday. A couple on the weekend and some repair videos out. So I thought today we'd talk a little bit more about taking in the older machines. Yesterday I told you you really have to spot stuff and make that call. Is the customer really going to want to put the money into that unit that you would have to bill if you bill correctly? And that is being honest. Maybe it took, like on that simple rewind that one of you did, it took 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours. Been there, done that. But you really can't come back. Let's say you have a $100 repair rate in your shop. Most in our area are running 120. Okay, let's just stick to an even number, 100. If you're sticking 3 to 4 hours into repairing a rewind, if you bill it correctly, you're billing $300 to $400 on that mini tiller for the rewind. And you can't do that. You know it. So, as you would put it, it was one of your good customers, so you went ahead and fixed it right. We all do that. Yep, we all do that. I have to make that decision on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Yay or nay. And what I try to do is I try to put myself in the customer's shoes. And how I would feel if somebody presented that bill to me. I would be horrified if I had to pay $300 to $400 just because my pull rope broke. But most of the time, my customer has no clue what is involved. I mean, they don't want to do it, but they don't have any clue that, like on those generators, you have to tear everything all apart. Just dismantling and mantling it back together will take minimum 2 hours. And that's where the mechanic knows what they're doing. And they still haven't dealt with the issue, and that's rewind on it or a carburetor on it. We're just talking getting to the culprit. So That's what I meant yesterday about you have to make that call at the doorway. Now, here's kind of like the catch 22. If it's like it is right now in my shop, I'm not sure what it's like in your shop at this time of the year, but this is, the lull before the run. We took in 5 weed eaters, snowblower, 6 lawnmowers already, but it's still, for us, the lull because we could get all the riders in and out and the snowblowers in a day. No problem. Trimmers, a little longer. Because as I was doing that video on the FS55 RC steel, that when it all came said and done, I ended up ordering a new carburetor for it. Because what we found was someone had been in the carburetor and there were parts missing. So at that point, I stopped. Say, look, it's not worth me putting the time into trying to fix that carburetor for what it costs or another one. But that brings us back to the weed eaters. They're one of the biggest culprits of putting an hour labor into them. In most places, you can buy them for $100. Not a steal, but most of the MTD line Cub Cadets, you can still buy the entry level for under $100. At least last I knew you could. So if your customer brings it to you and your mechanic spends an hour and a half on it, so there's $150 plus parts. Can you go out and tell your customer that it's going to cost them almost $200 to fix their $100 weed eater? And the thing is if you're being honest and truthful, most of us that own shops see this more often than we'd like to. My shop? No, I'm not going to charge a customer the $150. And, we talk about the more experienced mechanics that can get in, get out, right? In the end, here's what I look at, okay? I know that the weed eaters are not going to be a moneymaker, okay? At least not if you're being honest with it. But I tend to take that stuff. I love to see it this time of year. Because this time of year, shop work is slow. So when we got all the mowers knocked out and the snowblower knocked out, we took, and now we can double up on the trimmers and just get them out. And that's going to be kind of like gravy to us, because if they're not there right now, we don't have anything else to do. So we can sit there and twiddle our fingers till we're blue in the face, but until we get more work, there's no money coming in. But as an employer, I still have to pay out. Employee costs, the lights, utilities, all that stuff still comes out, whether you have one customer or 100 customers. So we take and leave the trimmers till last. Sometimes you get, quite a few of them in a row. But this is where I like to attack them. And that is, we call it easy money, but it's not easy money. It's taking that we normally would not work on if we had plenty of work in the shop on big units, to help pay pay the bills to keep the doors open. And your employee paycheck, right? So for us, it all comes down to, are we being slammed with bigger stuff that are moneymakers, or is it still kind of that quiet time in the shop? You have to make that call. Now, if we're in the busiest time where we have riders lined up out front, we'll still take them in. But my customer is going to know that we're going to work on that in between, the other. And a lot of times, I'll jump onto like your trimmers, chainsaws, all your 2-stroke stuff, and even your 4-stroke trimmers and that. And Claude will knock out the mowers, doing the service, the new blades, sharpening and all that. If we've got quite a few units in the yard, then we both double up on the lawnmowers to get them done so customers can get them back. And then we'll tackle the smaller stuff again. So how do you do it in your shop? Because I think it varies. Some people, if you're, right full up of the big ticket items, I wouldn't even take them in. Now, if you've got good compression, good fire, a lot of these trimmers nowadays, you can go onto eBay, and for under $10, you can buy a brand new carburetor and order that carburetor and have it come in for it, right? So now you can either do one of two things. You can spend an hour tearing apart that carburetor, cleaning it, ultrasounding it, all the other things. And you're going to have to bill the customer for that hour, right? Which is $100. But now, if I ordered a brand new carburetor online, had it come in, it took me maybe 10 minutes to compression check, fire, and I've located it to the carburetor. And then it's going to take me equally as much to put it back together. Now I've got a $10 carburetor I can mark up to, let's say, 20 or 25, whatever you guys mark up, plus a half hour, my time. What's more doable to spit it out the door? Yes, that means it's going to be here in the shop a little bit longer waiting for that carburetor to come in. But economically, I can do it that way versus spending that full hour doing a teardown on a carburetor. Now, if you got the time and you're in a lull where you don't have very many of the big ticket items to do, then a lot of times it's worth doing a carburetor teardown like Jason does, and clean everything up, put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, and do all those things, right? But if you're smacked and you're loaded, then buying the new carburetor is the only way to where you're actually going to make something on it, if that makes any sense. So that kind of brings us into our next segment of the show this morning, and that is trash to treasure. And I put in yesterday's video about perception and putting yourself in the customer's shoe. And if you take a unit, let's say you got your boneyard is loaded right up, and you got the time, and you start looking at, well, that chassis over there is good with the mower deck, but it's got a bad engine. This one, identical twin, has got a good engine, but a bad deck, and the transmission's gone. So if I figure my time taking the engine off, putting it on that chassis, and then putting it up for sale for $600, $700. Most of you, including me, would say that's a no-brainer. But here's where the kicker is, and this is what I tried to emphasize yesterday, and that is if the customer that gave you that chassis because you deemed it not worth fixing, and he went out and he was kind of forced to buy a new lawnmower versus trying to fix the old one because of the cost, right? But now, most people know what marketplace is, and that's where most people sell stuff locally. And let's say he's scrolling through marketplace and he spots a lawnmower, a rider for sale. Looks just like his old one. It is his old one. And you've put an engine on it, and now you've got it running. Yes, it's a moneymaker for the shop. Again, customer perception. Putting yourself in the customer's shoe. How would you feel if your shop that told you it was not fixable or not worth fixing has now fixed it and is selling it on marketplace? As Amos said, I'd be pissed. I'd be pissed. So that's why I say you have to be careful with this trash to treasure of where you're taking customers' machines that they no longer wanted because they couldn't afford to fix it or if it wasn't worth fixing, and you make an extra supplemental income off of it. The only way you can do that and do it, in my eyes, the best way, and that is to, as I said yesterday, talk to the original owner of the chassis, mower deck, and explain to him that you've got one that came in that's got a bad transmission and mower deck, and for a couple hours we could probably swap engines. Now, the guy that gave you the chassis with the engine issue, with the good engine with the bad transmission, not so much. I don't worry about that one. But I worry about the one that will spot their machine. And a lot of times, before I would do something like that, I would get ahead of it and I would call that customer and say, look, this is what we're up to, what we're thinking about doing. This is what you'd have in time. And then this is what the engine would cost to have us install it and get it ready to roll. Are you interested for this amount? And this amount should be quite a bit lower than what its resale value is, because honestly, they own the deck. They own the machine, transmission, all that, right? And I know with us, when we're doing dismantle, we know a good deck, we can pedal all day for around 100 and a quarter. A good hydrostatic transmission, same amount. So you give that customer the option. They may say, no, go ahead and do whatever you want with it, which is fine. Then, yes. If you don't do it, you run the risk of being called a scammer, a scumbag, and your shop will pay for it. So what are the other ways that you can do it that you can actually make money on stuff? And that just what I just said, dismantling. A lot of your mainstream engines like the Briggs and Kohlers and all them, engines that are, 4 to 5 years or older, there's so many people trying to peddle those parts that you're probably not going to get anything out of it, even if you try selling it on eBay, right? Now you get into the older Kohlers, the older Kawasaki, especially not air cooled, but liquid cooled machines. There's a market there. So you got to know what's out there for a market. And we sell a lot at the shop. We sell a lot of tires and rims, decks, transmissions for do-it-yourselfers that want to just swap things out and keep it going. And then, and that goes on throughout the year, right? And we're taking stuff off from the boneyard machines and putting it on our customers' machines to save them money. And we always tell them what we're up to so they know. And then after a period of time where we've stripped most of the stuff that we really could sell, right? Then we send the rest for scrap. And as I was saying, that usually here at the shop, after 3 to 4 years, we end up with enough scrap to equal $5 to $6 grand. And I'll be honest with you, we take everything. We're your local scrapyard, I guess. But, you know, if somebody has anything that they no longer want, the tendency is to stop and ask us, do you want it? And this is where it's okay to sell something whole. We've had numerous customers come and ask us, would you be interested in my old lawnmower? And my usual response is, how much? And it's nothing. I'll give it to you if you want it. Well, why don't you want it anymore? Well, it's getting old and tired. I want to get a new one for camp, whatever, and rides like a horse. All right. Now, he's telling you do whatever the hell you want with it. He don't want it. And he's looking for a place to get rid of it versus, you know, paying to have it, get rid of it, right? Because it doesn't save you money by putting one lawnmower on a trailer and taking it to your big scrapyard, which is about an hour away here. It's not economical. So if we get that machine and it's running and driving, a lot of times we've serviced it every year. So we know the machine. That allows us to sell to our lower end customers, and that is the ones that don't have as much money, disposable money to play with. Maybe this year is not the year they can afford to go out and buy a new one, and the old one isn't worth fixing, and now they're in a pinch. But if I can put them into a lawnmower for $200 to $400 that was given to me, that works, it's just the prior owner wanted nothing to do with it anymore, then you're making that money for the shop. But as long as everybody is on the same page, so there's no misunderstandings, and that's anything in business. You want to make sure that everybody has a full, comprehensive idea of what is being done, and that everybody agrees with it. So can it be done? Yes, but you got to do it the correct way. And that is knowing your customer and knowing how your customer would take something like that versus if you just called them and told them what you were up to. 9 times out of 10, they've already went out and bought a new lawnmower, and they really don't want that old one back anyways. But they appreciate the fact that you reached out to them instead of seeing it on Facebook for the first time by themselves. So you guys have a great Thursday. I'll catch up with you first thing tomorrow morning. Like I say, we're still in a winter advisory. You're supposed to get 6 to 8 inches of snow. It's supposed to snow all day today and then into tomorrow. Unreal. All right, guys.